Roman Abramovich is a name that evokes power, luxury, and controversies. Known as one of the most influential oligarchs in Russia, he built an empire, owned Chelsea, and was the governor of a Russian region. See, to give you an idea, as soon as the Russian president Boris Yeltsin decided to resign, Roman Abramovich was the person behind the choice of Vladimir Putin. He simply brought Putin to life. With that, their relationship almost made them inseparable. Roman was there for Putin's ups and downs, to the point where they were called father and son. But everything changed when Putin tried to kill him. From then on, he saw that he was no longer safe in Russia and had to leave most of his wealth in the country. With that, he turned his story into a narrative as dramatic as a movie script. It all began under grim circumstances. When Abramovich was only 3 years old, he lost both of his parents and was sent to live with relatives in a remote and cold region of northern Russia. With few resources and an uncertain future, young Roman was not exactly the portrait of a potential billionaire. However, what he lacked in opportunities, he made up for with an indomitable, entrepreneurial spirit. With that, he managed to rise in life and make his billions. But something wasn't right, as he began to get involved in dark paths. Roman's adolescence marked the beginning of his journey in the business world. He started by selling used tires and other automotive parts. This initial boldness put him in conflict with the laws of the Soviet Union, which prohibited private enterprise. But instead of being intimidated, Roman saw each obstacle as an opportunity to reinvent himself. Later, he entered the black market, trading products like perfumes and plastic toys, a sign of the pragmatism and opportunism that would become trademarks of his career. When he was drafted into the Red Army, many young people his age would have accepted their fate without question. But Abramovich found a way to turn even that experience into profit by selling stolen gasoline to military units. This small business was enough to accumulate a modest fortune, opening doors to even greater ventures. The fall of the Soviet Union brought with it an era of economic chaos and profound transformations. It was the perfect ground for a young entrepreneur like Roman. He took advantage of the privatization of state assets to enter the energy sector. His big opportunity came through the Russian government's Loans for Shares program, which allowed investors to lend money to the government in exchange for stakes in state-owned companies. When the government failed to repay the loans, investors like Abramovich took control of these companies at incredibly low prices. That's how, at the age of 28, Abramovich became the owner of Sibneft, an oil company valued in billions, but acquired for a fraction of its real worth. This meteoric rise was marked by powerful alliances, including his proximity to Boris Berezovsky, an influential oligarch and central figure in Russian politics in the 1990s. Together, they navigated the labyrinths of power, using political connections to consolidate their ventures. Over time, Abramovich became a close ally of Vladimir Putin. He not only helped consolidate Putin's power, but also played an important role in structuring the government. For years, they were almost inseparable, with Roman being seen as a confidant of the president. This relationship made him one of the most powerful men in Russia, but it also attracted the attention of enemies. The 2000s brought new challenges. While Abramovich diversified his investments, buying Chelsea Football Club in 2003 and spending fortunes to transform it into one of the world's greatest football clubs, disputes over control of natural resources in Russia intensified. The so-called aluminum wars were one of the most violent episodes of that era, with murders and betrayals being frequent. Abramovich, however, used his political skill to negotiate a merger between the main rival companies, creating Rusal, the third largest aluminum producer in the world. However, what goes to the top can also fall. In 2022, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Abramovich was caught in the crossfire of international sanctions. For a time, it seemed that his fortune and influence could protect him, but it soon became clear that no one was immune. More dramatically, reports emerged that he and other negotiators at a peace meeting between Russia and Ukraine had been poisoned. Roman survived, but the incident highlighted the risks of being at the center of power. Today, Abramovich is a man marked by the complexity of his legacy. He is seen by many as a business genius, capable of turning any situation into an opportunity. For others, he is a symbol of how wealth and power can be achieved at the expense of a corrupt system. What no one can deny is that his story is a fascinating reflection on the forces that shaped modern Russia and on how an individual can rise from the ashes to the top, even amidst chaos. Roman Abramovich is not just a historical figure, he is the reflection of an era. His life encapsulates the complexity of Russia's transition from a Soviet state to a wild market economy. His meteoric rise and the challenges he faced are a reminder of what is at stake in the upper echelons of power. And above all, his story continues to intrigue, inspire, and warn, showing that in the world of oligarchs, the price of success is often measured in broken loyalties, imminent dangers, and constant drama. Abramovich's connection with Putin was, without a doubt, the pinnacle of his rise to power. For many, he was more than an ally. He was seen as the political son of the Russian president. This proximity was not just a symbol of loyalty, but a strategic tool that allowed Roman to navigate the challenges of the Kremlin. However, like all high-level relationships in Russian politics, this one was also fraught with hidden tensions and distrust. Abramovich's loyalty to Putin was unquestionable during the early years. He was instrumental in consolidating the president's power, using his influence to facilitate sensitive negotiations and support strategic initiatives. But what Roman perhaps did not foresee was how the political dynamics could change. In Putin's Russia, proximity to power often means walking a tightrope, where the fall can be as swift as the rise. Over the years, the political and economic landscape of Russia has changed drastically. Abramovich, who was once a close confidant, began to be seen as a figure whose independence could represent a threat. His vast wealth and his ability to form international connections made him not just an oligarch, but also a potential rival, even if involuntary. Putin, always cautious about the possibility of betrayals, began to question Roman's true loyalty. The breaking point in Roman Abramovich's relationship with Vladimir Putin came to light with the crisis in Ukraine, an event that shook not only international politics, but also the ties between powerful figures of the Russian elite. The Russian invasion and the subsequent sanctions imposed by Western countries put Abramovich in a vulnerable and delicate position, highlighting the complexity of his status as an oligarch at the center of geopolitical disputes. Abramovich, trying to preserve his interests and influence, decided to act as a mediator in the peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. This attempt at diplomacy, although commendable in the eyes of the international community, was perceived differently by Putin and his inner circle. For a leader who sees loyalty as an unquestionable attribute and considers any gesture of concession as a weakness, Abramovich's involvement was interpreted as an act of betrayal, or, at the very least, as a lack of absolute commitment to the Kremlin's agenda. Putin, known for his relentless approach towards those he considers deviants, might have seen Abramovich's attempt as a threat to his own narrative and strategic control over the conflict. In this context, Abramovich, who was already facing economic sanctions and the freezing of his assets abroad, saw his position weaken not only on the global stage but also within Russia. The deterioration of this relationship is an emblematic example of how Russian politics handles alliances. The system built around Putin demands absolute loyalty, and any deviation, real or perceived, can lead to severe consequences. Abramovich, with his global influence and international connections, became an easy target for Putin's distrust, who has always been skeptical of figures enjoying significant financial and political autonomy. Moreover, the incident in which Abramovich was allegedly poisoned during a round of peace negotiations raises questions about the cost of trying to mediate in a system where force is often prioritized over diplomacy. This event not only underscored the dangers of his position, but also served as a reminder that, in the volatile environment of the Kremlin, even the oldest allies can quickly become dispensable. The tragedy of the relationship between Abramovich and Putin is that both benefited enormously from their partnership in the past. Abramovich played a crucial role in consolidating Putin's power during the 2000s, while Putin provided Abramovich with the necessary environment to prosper financially. However, the unfolding of this crisis shows how alliances based on convenience and power are fragile in the face of external and internal pressures. Putin's suspicions did not remain merely in the realm of conjecture. During one of the peace negotiations, Abramovich was the target of an apparent poisoning. Although he survived, the incident made it clear that his place in Putin's inner circle was in danger. For Roman, the attack was a brutal reminder that, in Putin's world, there is no room for mistakes or moves that could be interpreted as disrespect. The relationship between Abramovich and Putin, once seen as one of the strongest among the Russian elite, has become irreparable. The oligarch, who helped shape post-Soviet Russia, now faced the same fate as many who dared to challenge Putin's authority, directly or indirectly. He was transformed from ally to target, an example of how the Russian leader deals with those who, in some way, fall out of his favor. The tragic irony is that Abramovich, who once helped consolidate Putin's power, now found himself on the opposite side of the scale. For many observers, this change symbolizes the volatile and dangerous nature of Russian politics. Abramovich's meteoric rise and subsequent fall are a reflection of the unpredictability of a system where alliances can turn into deadly rivalries in a matter of moments. While Abramovich struggles to rebuild his life and reputation, he carries the scars of a system he helped create. His story is not just about wealth and power. It is a cautionary tale about the dangers of getting too close to the center of gravity of an authoritarian regime. Roman Abramovich, the oligarch who rose from the ashes of a difficult childhood to become one of the most powerful men in Russia, now finds himself in forced exile, a figure marked by choices that have defined not only his life, but also the trajectory of a nation. If there is one thing his journey teaches, it is that in the game of power, today's allies can become tomorrow's enemies. And sometimes, the price of loyalty is measured in blood and sacrifice. If you are fascinated by stories of power and geopolitical influence, militarism, and the behind-the-scenes of major decisions that shape the world, subscribe to the Tenso Militar channel right now. Here you will find exclusive analyses, immersive web documentaries, and content that deepens your understanding of the most strategic and complex scenarios on the planet. Don't forget to leave your like to support our work and strengthen our community of curious and enthusiastic individuals.